So my name is Erin McElroy. I'm here with the Anti-Eviction Mapping Project. I'm one of many people who works on the project. It's a collective, so it's not just me. And also, we're really a baby in the housing rights movement. We're just a few years old, and I think that when we think about innovation and new creative projects, it's important to also think about our ancestors and the different projects that came before us. And I just wanted to mark that it's about the 40th anniversary of the iHotel, which is a huge housing rights struggle that happened, mostly led by the Filipino community 40 years ago. So I think that when we think about how to do new things, we really need to remember what's already been done and to, make sure those connections don't die. Otherwise, we just keep on repeating the same mistakes. So in a nutshell, this is my question, which is really a big question. I'm asking, how do we build a movement that embraces both short-term and long-term goals so that we don't just only plan for the next election cycle, but for a deeper, more radical, sustained struggle against the morphing impositions of capitalism, oppression, and dispossession? And again, how can we learn from prior histories of resistance against displacement in doing so? So we began the mapping project because, as probably most of you know, there's a huge eviction crisis plaguing San Francisco right now. It's really picked up over the last 4 or so years. Over the last 5 years, I think evictions in general have risen 80%, and some of them have risen up to 200%, such as the Ellis Act and a lot of these no-fault evictions. And in San Francisco right now, because rents are so high, if you're evicted from your home, you're really evicted from the city. And being evicted from the city means also being evicted from your community, from legacy, from what you've been building for sometimes generations. And so it's actually a crisis. And we began the mapping project because we wanted to help document that, but also to help broaden the discourse. Because again, I think it's really easy to just take note of what's happening so quickly because it is happening so quickly. But we really want to also learn about those histories and how to keep these struggles against dispossession alive throughout different generations. And also right now, because of the current capitalistic system that we're imbricated in, money accumulates in San Francisco, but it's part of a global economy, right? Silicon Valley, which is generating a lot of money, has, it's stored in particular places in San Francisco, but it also accumulates that money by extracting resources and labor from across the globe. And I think that there's this really strange tension in San Francisco right now where there's this idea that a lot of the new projects that are starting are immaterial and have no material effects, but they actually do have material effects. And that's what we're trying to make more visible in the mapping project. So we make maps. This is our oral history map where we've collected about 50 stories now of folks who have been impacted by gentrification. And you can listen to them. Some of them are about an hour long. Some are snippets of 5 minutes or so. And so these are some of my friends who I've been working with over the last few years to help them stay in their homes. And this is a project we did with a group in New Orleans called The Land of Opportunity. And what it is, it's an interactive video piece. So we have this base layer video of my friend Benito Santiago, who fought his eviction and won through direct action. He was being evicted by a real estate speculator called Pineapple Boy LLC, a shell company of somebody in real estate. And we're seeing this all over San Francisco right now, where there are these shell companies basically parading as landlords and evicting tenants to create housing for people with a lot more money. But Benito fought his eviction and won through direct action. And we made this piece about him. And of course, if this was live, I could show you. But these little blue rectangles on the bottom are other stories and maps and articles. So as you're watching his story, they pop up and you can learn about the history of colonization in San Francisco, right? Because that's the first moment of dispossession that we really need to remember when we think about who's been removed. But you can also learn about housing struggles in New York or in Chicago or Detroit, because again, this is happening not just in San Francisco, even if it's happening really quickly here. And then my last slide is a mural project that we did in Clarion Alley in collaboration with the Clarion Alley mural project. And what we did was we painted our oral history map on the wall, and we had this dedication ceremony where we featured 9 stories, and those 9 stories, the people represented in those stories came and spoke. And we included Alex Nieto, who was murdered by the police in San Francisco last year, because we really want to make these connections between racial profiling and gentrification. Alex was killed because somebody saw him and thought he was suspicious, even though he was just sitting on a park bench, but because he was a person of color, he was reported to the police, who then came and killed him. So we really want to make these connections, between increased racial profiling, gentrification, displacement, et cetera, because I think that's not happening enough.